Hello, friends, and welcome to Binge O'Clock, the podcast where we watch something and then we talk about it. I'm Joy Selden, and I've seen almost everything.
I'm Danielle, and I've seen almost nothing.
I'm Nella, and if you're really going to sit there and tell me that John F. Kennedy is the Joe Biden of the alternate universe, so help me, I will flip this table.
Don't flip the table. We're recording a podcast. You can't.
I'll do it.
Your mic is on the table, Nella. No.
Your mic is on the table. Oh, no. Ew, no. Yes, and so in this episode of Binge O'Clock, we watched the episodes leading up to the mid-season finale of Fringe Season 3, which was 7 through 9.
Mm-hmm.
They were very intense episodes. I liked all of them.
Oh, same.
For very different reasons.
Lots of pain, lots of panic, lots of good.
I'm
Lots of
iffy on
not so
episode
good.
9, personally, but
We'll
get there.
That was in sync for me. I hope it's in sync on the...
Oh, hard same. Let's start with episode 7, The Abducted ... which, did they really have to put that ... in the title?
Sure, I guess. No, it's a good episode when you're in the alternate universe and this old man is shaving his head while reciting some sort of prayer like a fine, upstanding citizen. Yeah, I'm sure this guy pays his taxes on time and pets dogs and feeds the homeless. I'm sure of it.
Is that what the prayer in the washing communicates to most people?
No, it doesn't. But
And
like,
the very angry shaving of the head. He's very intense.
Aggro. Super aggro with it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the conceit of this episode is that a man is stealing children to steal their pituitary gland juice. Hey, we know this. We know this dance.
You know how House always, like almost every episode had a joke about how it wasn't lupus?
Yes.
This show's like running gag with giant quotation marks is that somebody's going for your pituitary. Like they can't get away from they can't step away from the pituitary, sir.
Here's what I think this is. Okay, look, I didn't do any research, friends, so I'm going on the seat of my pants here. But I know, like, our understanding of the brain is something fairly recent, like in the last, 40, 50 years, maybe, understanding which parts of the brain light up with which things. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when people got, like, not thyroid. I feel like when people got to certain parts of the brain, they were like, wow, this thing does a lot. Like the hypothalamus.
Yes.
The hypothalamus is intensely, like, important for a bunch of stuff. The pituitary gland is also super important for a bunch of stuff. And I feel like sci-fi nerds everywhere went, I can put this in a show.
Here's the thing. It's not so much the brain we're dealing with. We're dealing with hormones. And we've only really dug around hormones since, like, 1905. And it was, I believe his name was Ernest Starling, and I hope I'm correct on that.
I trust you inherently.
He worked with his brother-in-law, whose name was Bayless, and the reason I know this was because I did an episode about the little brown dog and the anti-vivisection movement, because how we found out about hormones was because we vivisected animals, and we extracted their hormones, and vivisection is dissecting something that's alive. Mm-hmm. And so there was a huge anti-cruelty movement because they were doing this on animals. And the little brown dog is the most famous example because, like, the UK and the American anti-vivisection movements lost their minds because this little brown stray dog was operated on, like, several times. And, like, it's not like they gave the animals anesthesia. They just strapped them down. It was horrific. I'm not going to lie. This was a horrific practice. And this was after the period in which they were like, well, if you can, try to anesthetize them. And if you can't find a good scientific reason why you can't anesthetize them, just sort of hand wave it. Like, it was
right.
ugly.
Or if you shouldn't anesthetize them because that will change the results of your vivisection.
Yeah, you have to give a reason for it.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of, file that under pet projects, as Walter would say.
Yes. No, and like, I mean, they're like, bless the early 20th century. We had Walters abound. And, like, not to get too dark, but, like, at least we weren't, experimenting on enslaved black women or something.
Yes. Yep.
Jesus.
Yep. I have a lot of opinions about the experiments that we know about and do not know about that have gone on between the white community and the African American community and the black communities. I have a lot of opinions.
Yeah.
But this show isn't about that.
No.
No.
But I mean, sure, like hormones, it's a thing.
Well, right, but like I do think there was this, you know, every like 10 or so years there's this revision of like, oh yeah, remember the brain? It does that weird thing, and then somebody gets obsessed with it and then it comes back.
Yeah.
Well, basically we got Ted Bundy with a pituitary problem plus kids instead
Once
of women of the night,
more.
I guess.
Once
and I
more.
guess he doesn't kill kids, which good job, the bar is so low.
He just
No.
makes them die sooner because they do die very early.
Yeah.
Like poor Christopher wasn't going to make it to his 18th birthday.
I
And-
swear to
Well,
God.
so
This killer is one of those people who's just like, but aren't they so inspirational? These young children dying of cancer, like, he's.
And it was also kind of strange because I think it was different from some of the Ted Bundy with pituitary problems that we've seen before because
It's
at
multiple.
first, yes. First of all, there are two of them. Second, they set it up as if this one person is making themselves younger over and over again in order to save themselves, which is what one of the people is doing. But the other Ted Bundy in this situation was using the pituitary juice, which, Joy, I love that he stole from the children to heal his congregation, which
Yeah.
I'm like, what kind of trolley problem justification is going on in that brain?
Power. It's about power. It's about power.
I mean, it's about power, but also like if you actually had the ability to, I forget what somebody says, like that her liver grew back or something. Like it's a
Yes.
throwaway line about
Yeah.
one of the things this head of this church did. If you had the ability to actually physically heal people with quote unquote prayer and drink this sacramental wine, where who knows what's in there, right? Like we don't actually know the process, but like, if you had the ability to actually do that, you would have so much power over so many people.
Right, it's a very like feel the power moment.
Yes.
No, I hear
I
you.
also I don't understand the dude needing to get young again every 2 years.
That is confusing
Right?
me. And I guess it's a little bit of that eternal youth that I suppose people are constantly seeking. He just really, really, really didn't want to die.
I mean, I guess it also, it speaks to it always comes, like, the search for eternal youth always comes with some kind of price.
Yes.
You know, like you see this in like a vampire story where like you have to drain the blood of other people in order to stay alive and like it sustains you and blah, blah, blah. And like if you stop, you know, there are so many stories of vampires who like don't drink blood and it's like, oh yeah, it's like you either waste away or you go crazy or you revert back to some animalistic something because it's like you're not eating, quote unquote. And
Right.
it's like, so the dude would have just died in 2 years if he didn't have access to a child. Like, it's so uncomfortable.
I
But
know.
why the pituitary? See, like here's where I just get hung up because it's a hormone. It's
It's the same problem we had in the first
it's the
episode.
endocrine system. It
I know.
doesn't regrow livers. If
This
you
is
want
that-
that, you need to go steal stem cells.
This is that meme. Like this is what's the meme that I'm thinking of? That this isn't the way it works.
This isn't
the way it
thing
works.
you think
This
it is.
isn't how any of this works.
This isn't how any of this works. It's just not. It's kind of like how if you were continuing to do that, you wouldn't all of a sudden secrete sucrose through your sweat. I'm
That's
reasonably sure that's not how that works.
Is it? Oh, like
Okay, so the sucrose thing. Here's the thing about the sucrose thing. I think what that was him. That was the wash we saw him do at the beginning.
No. So she was saying, and I can't remember who said this, though I could find it in my notes if I really wanted to look, that
Sure.
one of the side effects of going through this process was that the person would become hyperglycemic.
sure.
So, but so hyperglycemic, like those were the words
I'm sorry,
she used.
our listeners can't see my face. I just like stared in a corner for a whole second.
That's literally what they said.
Make any sense.
That's what I'm saying. Literally, that's what they said. This person would become hyperglycemic, but so much so that they would secrete sucrose sucrose, mind you, in their sweat.
That's not what the sweat glands do? Wait. Do they? You can't.
No, it would be
You can't.
it would be through your urine. Because your body's like, how do I dump this much sugar? Why are you doing this to me? There's not enough insulin in this world for what you've done.
And that's what who
do you think you are? A Victorian making an alcoholic punch? What's all this sugar doing here? That's what your liver is screaming.
I don't know. There are so many good titles for this episode just in the first 13 minutes. I don't know what to do.
That's what I'm here for.
Victorian punch.
Okay. Now, just briefly setting aside the mystery in this episode, because the mystery in this episode was a real doozy. The reason the Fringe team gets involved in this mystery in the first place is kind of a minor detail I love. Yes, which is that the secretary Walternate has so broken up over his child Peter being stolen from him that he passes the Peter Bishop Act of 91, and the act says that every kidnapping must be treated like a possible Fringe event.
I love it. That, like, man, when you talk about, like, these background details, like, so there was one other in this episode that, like, was one of those, like, alternate universe ones where I was like, okay, now that one I can get behind. A little bit like West Wing season 11, where when Henry is listening to the radio before Olivia gets in the cab. Henry's back, by the way. Congratulations, everyone. Before she gets in the cab, on the radio, they're talking about how 2 of 3 major political parties are trying to pass a 2-kid limit and how that's being discussed. Now, so we're in a world where we don't have a 2-party system. Hey, that thing we're trying to accomplish in this country, and yet here it's obviously not the greatest thing because we're dealing with, 2-kid limit, which we know is not. This isn't a good idea. I mean, it's not. It's not
viable. I mean, I know. Look, science fiction loves to play with. We're going to impose this thing. And sort of see what happens.
I'm assuming the alternate universe doesn't have to deal with the quiverful movement or homeschooling, because if you want a ton of babies, that's how you get them. You have a fundamentalist religious background, like pumping them out to fight in a war.
I mean, is it weird that I would almost believe more that they're suffering some kind of long-term effect of, maybe what's it called? When it's like that pregnancy goes
that
down,
viral preeclampsia that they have,
yeah.
Are you telling me that maybe the 2-kid limit is that you have to at least pop out 2? Is that what you're trying to twist on me?
That is more interesting to me and much more makes
Who do you think you are, Battlestar Galactica?
But if people are
that's an interesting
constantly getting trapped in amber,
right? I mean, people are constantly getting trapped in amber. I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff where it's like, because there are shortages of a lot of things, I'm sure metabolisms have changed. Diets are probably different. I mean, the thought of a society that is not sustained by coffee is literally impossible for me to understand.
Right? How do they get anything done?
I don't know.
How do they get anything done?
It's called chicory. I don't know.
But too much chicory is also poisonous.
Well, sure.
Because you have to distill the chicory with something else. No, but what I'm saying is the environment could be creating a thing. I would think that would be more interesting, and I choose to believe the interesting route, and it's not just one child, one family or some nonsense.
Right.
Please don't.
Every family must have at least 2 children. Very interesting.
Wow.
That's what I'm thinking.
I have a lot of questions for trans men in this universe, and I sincerely do not think that the writers of Fringe went that far with their thinking. They were what do Americans...
Neither do I, okay?
What do Americans hate? I know, being told you can't have as many kids as you want, instead of hey, what if we made it that if you have a uterus, you have to, and you're married, you have to have kids.
At least 2.
But then,
At least two.
then is there like a movement to like, can you report people for living cohabitating without being married and being like, it's common law, they should be popping them out?
Oh, it's very interesting.
Can you not like, as someone with a uterus, can you not like get permanent birth control?
So all of a sudden, people are actually not getting married; they're just cohabitating because that's the loophole. That's how you get around the law.
Well, I mean, again, this law is on the floor being discussed, and 2 of 3 major political parties support it.
Look. I 100% believe it is the opposite. I just want it to be more interesting. But like the other thing too is, you know, all of these horrible, terrible things are happening in your world. I understand.
You do understand that the Nazis had a policy where women were supposed to pop out like 4 kids, right?
I certainly do.
Yeah,
and I freaking hate
but
it.
Hence why it would be more interesting if that was the law. Yeah, no, I get it, but
you
I'm
know
also
what I mean? Like that would almost make sense in my brain.
And it does kind of jive with what we know of this AU and with the government in this AU.
Yeah, but I do think it's probably also one of those things of like our resources are low. We can't actually accommodate a boost in population. Like these next few generations of children will just suffer. So we're going to attempt to prevent that from happening. Whereas it's not a thing you can do. Yes, I just couldn't word because it's like, it's never a thing that you can actually enforce.
Right. No, yeah. Although Lord knows people will
you
try
enforce it in the worst possible way.
Looking at you, Texas.
Right. Well.
Anyway.
Speaking of tragic
that was the first
things,
episode.
Yes.
I was just going to say, speaking of tragic things, I think the other big thing we get in this episode is that we learn quite a bit about AU Broyles. We unlock his tragic backstory, and we get to see what a Broyles in an intact marriage looks like, feels like, sounds like, all the likes.
Very here for it. What a good dude.
I'm here for it. I am a little bit sus about his marriage because it definitely felt like there was a power dynamic in there that I didn't particularly like.
What do you mean by that? But then again,
it's just, well, I mean, it's just a product of the world we're in where it just felt like his wife was attempting to make like those societies where it's like when like the man makes all the decisions in the household and the woman makes suggestions.
No, it's it's the classic biblical thing of like, and then you lay your head on their lap and you bind their legs, but because you're in the submissive position, it's like they have to listen to you, but it's also weird. Like, I get it.
It's so weird. Like the way she's like, I like Olivia, like where she's just like, does Olivia think she can help our son? Because I think she can help our son. If she has anything, we've tried everything for 4 years and nothing is working. As opposed to, I've always liked Olivia. You could bring her by, maybe. I don't know. I think she couldn't just say it.
I just push back on it because like this was a deeply traumatic thing that happened to the family. And it was also a deeply traumatic thing that he has a role in and a responsibility for. And so, I feel like it makes sense that anyone, not even just like Broyles, a man, anyone would be like, I failed. I failed the one person I was supposed to protect above all. And so I will now shut it all down. Like, I will make sure that I protect them as best to my ability as I can moving forward. And I can see that very, very distinctly becoming like the sticking point where as good a husband or father as he is, like you do not bring that topic up because he has made up his mind on that one thing. I could see it because that's a trauma response.
What about the conversation in the botanical garden though? Do you think it followed the same pattern, Joy?
See, that it's also hard to say because it's like she was just there being the supportive wife. And a lot of times when you have a very dominant husband, it's like, yes, of course you're the person to save the world. And I don't know. And it's entirely true. Maybe I'm just projecting that it's like gender driven because of the dynamic of their marriage, but it's also like in the Fringe division where the two dudes on the team are like, Olivia, don't go down this road. And Olivia's like, but what if we did? And they're like, no, really, don't talk to Broyles about this. And then she attempts to talk to Broyles about this and is like, maybe your son does want to talk about it, but maybe you're not the person to ask the questions.
Right.
And approaches it from I understand that this whole thing really sucks. What if I just tried? And like, and then his wife basically says the same thing.
Right.
But in a much less direct way. And it just felt really weirdly women against men. It was like 3 men to 2 women. And I wasn't sure how to balance it in my brain. I don't know. When I initially saw this on television, I was like, oh, that's great to like see him in a healthy marriage. And then I watched it again and I was like, I don't know if she's just being gentle because it's a hard situation for all of them. And I also don't know if they're still together because their son lived through this highly traumatic experience. You know, like maybe the trauma brought them all closer, and that's entirely possible. You know, like that could have also happened. I don't know. I don't know that I necessarily like their dynamic, but then again, I like so few dynamics in the alternate reality that maybe it's just a product of the world we're in.
Yeah.
I like A.U. Broyles. I do. I think he's a very interesting character. And like most interesting characters, I think he's allowed to have flaws.
Yeah.
And one of them could be that maybe he is the more dominant husband and his wife is more submissive.
Well,
and they just have the dynamic of like she has to make suggestions and it has to be his decision.
Well, I mean, that makes sense because this is you don't ask questions when Fringe Division rolls in. And therefore, if you are head of Fringe Division, you have to have the authority that brokers no questions.
Exactly. And he runs their local Fringe division.
Yeah.
So.
Now, I think we can also believe that the wife, you know, is a true believer in the cause, but then also knows her husband and also like wants the best for the world. And if he says, I think I have a different path for the best of the world, she's going to go for it. Because I think it's the problem of, what was it? Like of Achilles and bringing things back into the tent of like when someone is dealing with what they perceive to be a war, like there is a level of trauma and violence that you cannot understand. And that's what they bring back into the tent. Like I once watched this reading of a Greek play where afterwards the discussion among the actors was just like, yeah, like it's Achilles and Patroclus and like, but then the wife comes in the tent and like this thing of the wife knowing she's going into a dangerous place because they have brought something back into the tent. But like you have to confront it because you have to diffuse it. It's a bomb, you know? And that idea of like, how do you deal with someone who is a soldier who has suffered trauma, who has had to make calls that you know, now he knows those calls have destroyed lives. They destroyed lives to begin with, but these are lives that didn't have to be destroyed, that there are lives sitting in amber.
Right. And even beyond the amber, if he makes the call to start this war, he's killing an entire world.
Yeah.
An entire world of people.
How do you have a conversation with anyone who has that on their shoulders?
Yeah. And that's entirely valid. I mean, it also could just be that she has been living with this man for at least, the boy's like 12 or something, right? For like, they've been married
that sounds
for
right.
a minimum of 15-ish years.
Right.
I mean, like, there's also, you know, you've been married for that long. Maybe sometimes you just pick your battles and I'm reading too much into it. But like, we only meet her for an episode, so it's very hard to really get a sense of their relationship. But
yeah,
they definitely do feel like a family unit, at least where their son is concerned, and protect that boy at all costs. Yeah. I hope he lives to a ripe old age, which we know he won't, but we hope he does.
I mean,
now they have the technology, and if there's one thing I will believe about Walternet, he will sacrifice a traitor to the four winds, but by God, if your kid is suffering, he will make right. He will at least make sure that, like, your wife and your kid live. Like,
I'm so glad you said that, because there's a thing that's coming that Walternet eventually says, and it's going to be like, there it is.
Anyway.
I can't remember.
In favor of the thing you said.
Okay, I was like, I can't remember what thing he says, but I was about to quote him when he was talking about the Peter Bishop Act, which is when he says, "There is no crime more heinous than the theft of a child."
Yes, and Walternate is a little bit like the mob. You don't kill the women and children.
Yep.
Maybe you gotta hit the guy, but if you are legit, you make sure that the widow and kids are being taken care of.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you sure do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which all of that to say, A.U. Broyles got himself a little in too deep with Olivia in the next episode.
Yes. In episode 8.
Well, you know how you all were being like, God, like PhauxLivia, like men to throw themselves at helping her, and I'm like, does not our Olivia also engender some kind of like, I need to help her. I think she's you know what? I like the cut of her jibe. I'm gonna help this
Okay.
dame.
Here's the difference. The difference though. The difference is because Olivia is the cat that you pick up by the scruff of the neck so that she can't move, because you know if you pick up by her leg, she will claw your face, and you're just like, I'm just trying to take you to the vet.
Right. And PhauxLivia is the cat who's moving in and out and between your legs because
trying to trip you
because she would really like a meal. You know, yes. I think these are two very different cats.
But you want to help both of them.
You want to help both of them.
But they are two very different cats.
Like PhauxLivia is like, you need to trust that the food is coming, and then like PhauxLivia is like, you need to trust that I'm not trying to kill you.
It's exactly that, though. How many times has our Olivia like had to beat down Broyles' door and been like, I'm already on your side. Can you stop? Can you bring it? You're at a 10 right now. Can you bring it down to like a 6?
And then like PhauxLivia's like, no, I guess maybe unsure.
I mean,
what do you mean I have a warm place to sleep? I haven't inspected it yet. I don't know it's true.
I enjoy these pets, but what if one day you try to kill me?
What is that? The percentage of your cat like succeeding in murdering you is low, but not 0 or something? Anyway, I'm sorry, Danielle. You were about to say anything.
No, I wasn't. I was mostly just... I wasn't attempting to say anything more than I was attempting to bring us back to the end of episode 7 so that we could then transition into episode 8. Because speaking of Olivia, we do get that pretty dramatic phone call that Peter receives at the end of episode 7.
By episode 7, Henry has helped Olivia get to Liberty Island. She is trying to get to the immersion tank so she can try to yeet herself back into her proper universe.
I a little bit don't understand why the final time her body made it over and the previous times it did not, but somehow it worked.
No, the final time Broyle shut her up with extra cortexiphan.
Oh, do we think that's why?
I think she needed the boost. I think she needed the boost of extra cortexiphan.
That makes a lot of sense looking at it from the outside.
She swiped it. She swiped it before they left the lab.
I think that was the missing piece. But anyway, so in this, first attempt, full of
so much cortexiphan at this point, you guys.
Well, better than LSD. Anyway, so she manages
experimental drug after experimental drug. It's fine. I'm sorry, Nella. Go ahead.
She's able to make a connection with another human on our side of the universe. And she passes on a message. And this is a very dramatic phone call that Peter receives while lying in bed with a very sleepy PhauxLivia, who I'm guessing, like, wow, talk about, like, the worst timeline. Casablanca with Ronald Reagan, where they actually end up together? No.
Well, actually, we don't know if the ending is actually different in the AU. She just has never seen it before.
She's making it up. But the thing is, like, I find it hilarious that Casablanca could be so bad in the alternate universe. I feel like they've made
Ronald
a version
Reagan
of Casablanca that you only watch because you hate watch it. And you're like, look at the swear jar, like, black and white movie. And, like, no, the only reason you watch it is because it's, like, the alternate universe Mystery 3000, like, did a riff on it. And it's like a cult classic.
Yeah.
That's the Planet 9.
Mystery Science Theater 4000.
Mystery Science Cinema. Excuse you.
Yeah,
I guess.
No.
Mystery Science Cinema 250.
No, it'd be like Mystery Science... No. Mystery Physics Cinema Alpha Beta.
I know. I was trying to think of an alternate, like, mystery, and I'm like, no, but I like mystery.
But it's got to be mystery. Otherwise, it's just not the same thing anymore. Okay, so anyway, he gets this dramatic phone call. The janitor who works in the souvenir shop. This poor woman who works in the souvenir shop that Olivia keeps yeeting herself into sees Olivia disappear before her eyes, and so actually makes that phone call, calls Peter from New York and says, I saw a woman disappear before my eyes. Her name's Olivia. She has a message for you. She's trapped in the other universe. End episode 7, direct to episode 8, which picks up right where episode 7 left off. Fantastic. I can't even imagine waiting a week between these episodes. I didn't live in a world where I had to do that. I just hit next.
No.
It was the worst. As the only one on this call who legitimately did... Look, I legitimately did it all the way through... I want to say all the way through season 4. Mm-hmm. And then season 5 was actually something I, like, purchased on Amazon Prime and binged. But all the way up to the end of season 4 was weekly episodes for me. And yes, it was the worst thing on the planet. And it was all I could think about for the entire week.
Right? Were you there, Gandalf? Were you there 3,000 years ago when you watched the strength of men fail?
What is that? A friend, Nella and I have a mutual friend who posted something recently that was like, hey, do you want to sound cool? Say the things that the king says from Lord of the Rings.
Oh, right. Yes, I have seen this. Mm-hmm.
and it was pretty great. It's just a bunch of stuff that I'm like, what if I just spoke in Lord of the Rings quotes for the rest of my life?
They are fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Pretty good.
Anyway.
Yeah. So it picks up with Peter and PhauxLivia in the apartment, and we're not going to get too much into a plot-by-plot, play-by-play. I think I just want to talk about, like, the first scene in that episode and then their last scene together.
Yes.
Like, PhauxLivia and Peter, like, their first and last scenes in this episode.
They are really good bookends.
And, like, Peter wakes up and he stays awake next to PhauxLivia for 2 hours staring at the ceiling this phone call.
Done it.
Just waiting and thinking and plotting. And then we get to see their little cat and mouse game where they're each trying to trick the other.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Peter pulling his best con man. Can I just... Probably the only thing that bothered me about that scene is the fact that her computer wasn't password protected. Only specific files were password protected, but,
Bless.
No.
Although now, honestly, it makes me want to take the stickers off of my laptop because then, like, how else can I fake you taking the wrong laptop if they don't look exactly the same?
What a good trick! Like in the end, she kind of one-upped him, in that she grabbed her gun and could tell that she was being tested and could tell that she had failed the test, but. He managed to switch the computers first.
Again, you brought the jock to the smart universe. You brought the jock.
Yeah, we were watching this episode with a couple of friends who hadn't seen the show before or hadn't seen it up to this point. Mm-hmm. And they were like, how on earth did she grab the wrong laptop? And I was like, because she's not intelligent.
You're right. That's exactly who she is. How did we describe them before?
She does the
gym rats, right?
No, the CrossFit. The
CrossFit bros.
Yeah.
I was like, I knew it was a gym-related something. These are,
CrossFit. We could call them gym rats. I'm okay with either way. Yeah. But yeah, she takes the wrong laptop because it's like he convincingly like, was on his own computer in giant quotation marks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's just really interesting of the like, oh no, he's sus from a phone call. And you know what I mean? And that was she even sleeping for 2 hours? Like, did she just have her eyes closed? Like,
Or is she just a light sleeper? It's really hard to say. Like, I think similarly, another question you could ask yourself is, was there some part of Peter that didn't fully trust her, and so the screensaver on their laptops was the same by design? This is like a long con. Ooh. Or was that just a happy accident?
His subconscious was like, red alert, but couldn't actually... like typed in the command, but what do you mean? And it's like, we don't know, we don't have enough data. Yeah. And so like his brain was just like, I'm just gonna do this. Just gonna do this.
Now, right before they realize that they've switched computers, perhaps one of my favorite Broyles moments, because we do love Broyles, is when he's a very poor investigator. And Broyles, kind of thinking out loud, says, hold on, but if you were administered this sedative at 2:15 in the morning, what were you doing in Olivia's apartment at 2:15 in the morning?
But you know, he's like that dad. He's like that dad that like doesn't think about his kids ever moving out and getting married and like having children. Like these aren't thoughts he has.
My buddy, my friend.
He's that dad that's just like, you both went to your respective bedrooms and slept all night. Yes.
Correct, right? He's so good at his job Walter. And he's so bad at this.
I also love Walter desperately trying to come up with well, you see, Olivia called the house and Peter rushed right over.
Yeah. Yes. I love Walter trying to cover. Like, oh, God. No, it's so good. It's so good.
Mm-hmm. Oh, bless. How did he miss it? How on earth did he miss it?
This Broyles is
showing up
divorced.
at work together every day. They're leaving work together every day. They're probably, I don't know. I don't get it. PhauxLivia is not shy. I fully believe that, like, in the office, she would have had her arm around him, or she would have, this and that. Like, they wouldn't have been.
Oh, that's actually a good point, too.
They are not, she's not shy about PDA.
Also, I think Broyles is, like, upset that he didn't notice. Like, his first line coming into the apartment is, like, 8 weeks. You know?
True.
Yes.
He's so mad. Like, I think he's mad that he didn't catch it either. You know?
No,
like,
100%. 100%.
Everyone's upset. Everyone is upset, like we knew they would be.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I feel like we can pretty much just jump straight to the train station because... like the train station sequence of her, getting the resonators injected into her skin and basically waiting to leave. And then they show up because they were able to. Oh, yeah. Finding the typewriter was pretty great, too, by the way. I love that moment. But like they.
The more you know. Until I saw this episode, I did not know that's how a typewriter works.
Oh, yeah. The ink ribbon.
with the little ink ribbon. Very cool.
So I know we don't have a lot of extra time on this episode, but really quickly, I learned how to type on an old-fashioned typewriter. Mm-hmm. So one of my favorite things to do when I was very, very young, before I learned how to type, was to actually mess with the ink ribbons. Mm-hmm. And my mom would give them to me so I could, like, it was like my own little Nancy Drew and, like, piecing together stuff. The ink ribbon, that. She had obviously, like, already depleted. And she was like, here, it's fine.
Figure out the message. But yeah, so those are the two through lines in this story, right? Olivia is trying desperately to get back to her world and just continuing with that. And, by the way, finding out that they mean to dissect her and then use her body, actually vivisect, really, because they intend to cut out her organs in her brain while she is alive. Yes. And after they've done that, to replace the mass that they've taken from her and use her to swap their Olivia back.
Yes, and this is Brendan's idea. Mm-hmm. And it's Brendan's idea, and I will never forgive him for it.
Evil Brendan.
Worst Brendan.
Yeah, evil Brendan is evil Brendan. And there's
doesn't have a personality.
And there's nothing
just wants
redeeming.
To vivisect things.
Yes, there's nothing redeeming about him. Because at least, with Walter in it, like, I know he's evil Walter and all of that. But you at least still get to see him as, like, a father who loves his son and whose son was ripped away from him. And that kind of twisted him into the person he is. Whereas Brendan is just evil.
Just a bad man.
Or even, like, Walter and it trying to have that connection moment with Broyles of being like, I know what it's like to lose a son. So I'm here to talk if you ever need. Like, what a fascinating little moment of humanity, right? Because no matter how far deep, dark down Walternate has gone, it has all stemmed really from my son was stolen from me.
Yes.
And like,
and when my son was stolen from me, they broke our world.
Yeah.
They not only broke my world, they broke our entire world.
Yes. Yeah. And now he has to fix it.
And I hate them. The train station is such a great scene because we even get the like, you know, is she going to get away one last time? And then she's not going to get away and she's in custody, but then she does get away.
I mean, we get to see Peter being useful, where he figures out that the quote hostage that PhauxLivia has as she's trying to get away is
hey, his brains are back, Nella.
What's your daughter's name?
Love it. Love to see it. Peter woke back up. Yeah, no, there's a really great scene because, of course, a Mercury soldier is helping PhauxLivia at the train station, kills a woman. Her daughter outside of the bathroom recognizes her mother, is screaming for her mother, and Peter puts it together because he knows the report came in that there was PhauxLivia and a man in the bathroom, and then
and he even
comes
saw them.
Out with
he saw them as they retreated back into the bathroom.
But PhauxLivia comes back out with a woman, and he remembers.
Yes.
If there was someone else in there, they ain't alive anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, and then we get that super sad reveal where since Olivia successfully escaped, and so they could not use her body to swap in their PhauxLivia, what they did instead was they used AU broils.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, without one arm and one leg.
Because
body mass.
Body mass. That body mass.
And Broyles, of course, sees his doppelganger come back through in PhauxLivia's place.
Peter tried, but Broyles is not a man to not look at a thing.
Yep.
And Broyles is the one that later on the slab closes his doppelganger's eyes.
And thus, the Olivias are back in their respective universes. All is, quote, right in the worlds that this show has beautifully constructed. Olivia wakes up in her hospital bed, and as he should be, Peter is there. However, not everything is as it should be.
It's not right. And also, the soldiers have the missing piece of the Doomsday device. By the way,
true. Yes.
It did actually. The Doomsday device has now swapped universes, so I'm sure that's going to be really helpful for everyone.
Which anyway, in episode 9, we don't even really deal with the main plot at all, or with the Doomsday Advice, or with any of that. No, it's another
monster of the week, and it's about like the coming down off the trauma.
That's exactly what it is. Like, we had to process our emotions before getting back to the main plot.
So we needed just a monster of the week, in order to deal with our emotions.
I mean, this is the formula of the show. Like, we're going to throw a lot of emotional stuff at you, and then we're going to have a monster of the week episode because you want to get back to normal.
I know I talk a lot of nonsense about the writers of the show. I do appreciate, on the whole, their pacing. I will admit their pacing is very good. They know exactly when to rip your heart out, like in episode 7, literally rip your heart out. This is the one. 9. Yes. They literally rip your heart out so you can process what just happened.
Yep. That's
Take your heart out, you look at it, you examine it, you put it back in.
And I like that you get to see the characters process too, because Olivia goes through this emotional arc that is very, very, very much her. Like, she starts out the episode, I'm back at work, I gotta be here, I have important things to do. She has a conversation with Peter where she insists that she's totally fine.
Well, like, she tries to contextualize it as, well, I was over there, I was living her life, she
had a really full life. She had a boyfriend. I mean, if he wasn't home, who knows what would have happened?
Yeah, exactly. Like, she tries to offer Peter and herself the out of, well, what can you do, Like,
right.
It could have happened to anybody.
At the same time, though, we really do see her face fall when she first hears that the two of them were formally together.
Yeah.
And then she just kind of slowly falls apart. over the rest of the episode. Like, she has that scene by the lawn where she's ripping everything out of her apartment, her clothes, her sheets. She's got to wash it all because PhauxLivia has been in her life. And then she finds Peter's sweatshirt in the laundry, in the dryer, and just has herself a little cry because sometimes you need a little cry. And then she touches base with Astrid because sometimes you have to touch base with Astrid. And it takes
which is the best touch base with Astrid, I think, in the entire show so far.
Yeah.
Personally.
Even though, like, and even as she says it, she knows that, like, that's not appropriate to ask of anyone. Mm-hmm. But, like, Astrid immediately picks up, like, oh no, God, you need help.
I know. Oh no. And she goes through all of that before she's finally has her light bulb moment based around the mystery in the episode, which we can get into if you all want to. She has that light bulb moment and then is able to have an actual conversation with Peter. Yeah. But it takes her time.
Isn't there the scene between Walter and Peter where Peter's like, I don't know, she took it pretty well.
Yeah.
But isn't Walter the one who says, do you think they possibly replaced her with a robot?
Yes.
Walter had some really good ones these last 3 episodes. But
no,
Walter
he did.
Has at least one.
I mean, like, well, actually, yeah. While we're talking about Walter, we could talk about Walter real quick. Where I think this last episode, you know, he's really trying to be there for Peter. He's trying to be, you know, the father that he never was, which was supportive and giving advice and, like, really thinking things through. And, like, he's come a really long way. And he's genuinely trying to be a good dad, I think, at this point. And he has some responsibility. You know, he has massive dynamic and he has resources now. And I think he doesn't feel as helpless. And he's really able to, like, genuinely talk about it and be like, look, I know I made mistakes. I know I kept big secrets. You cannot do the thing I did.
Yeah.
You know,
you have
not
to tell
to
her.
Olivia. But at the same time, and I even said this to Nella, where it was like, but Peter and Olivia are not the kind of people who, quote, wait for the right moment.
No.
Or wait to find the words to say the thing. Like, their definition of honesty is blunt and direct and to the point and when it happens.
Yes. Yep.
Which is sometimes beneficial, but you have to be, like, prepared for the fallout of whatever that means. And it's not that I don't think, like, I do think Peter should have said it as quickly as possible, because the problem with something like that is, like, she's living in her own house. She's going to see the t-shirt eventually. She's going to know they were in a relationship. Like, it's not something he can hide from her at all. Not that he ever would anyway, because that's just not who he is. However, I just really wish he would have waited till they were not, like, working a case and having a coffee waiting to talk to a witness.
Exactly. Like, maybe not in the hospital waiting room. You know?
I don't know.
The way things go, like, when else are you supposed to talk about this?
I know.
Like, I mean, that's when you
that's
come
also
into
the tension. No. This is also the tension of television. Yeah. Like, we need that tension because that drives the rest of the episode, because she is a locomotive and she will not stop. Like, Olivia will try to figure out the thing. And I get it. I just also, like, but that's not good for your long-term relationship. It's fine.
No, it's not. It's not. But it's what has to happen. And also, like, she has to go through the stages of grief, and one of them is the anger and upset about, she lived my life. She's in my sheets, she's in my clothes, and she took you from me.
Yep. That's when she's ripping the apartment apart.
And that, how could you not have known?
Yeah. Eventually we get to the...
Eventually that's where we get.
Yeah. Eventually we get to the, I was in an alternate reality for 2 months, and the thought of you kept me sane, and you were here not realizing that she wasn't me. And she could not cope with that. As few probably could and could not, you know, do it. Like, she got past the rationalization and she had an actual emotional epiphany.
Yes.
And she's allowed to be angry.
And hurt. And I think that it's a lot of that. She's hurt. Because how could this murderer What, I mean, is he technically a murderer? I guess he did kill people.
He's a murderer.
He did. How could this murderer, who is systematically going from organ receiver to organ receiver, taking them apart while they are alive. So many vivisections in these episodes, y'all.
A lot of this is the vivisection series.
So many. Just taking them apart, building this Frankenstein, putting this girl together, and he looks into his Frankenwife's eyes, and he knows instantly that it isn't her. And Olivia's like, wait, what? He did this and not you?
I mean, look.
And that's it. That's the breaking point.
Obsession is a hell of a drug, too, though. Can we talk about that for a second? Like, I mean, there's also the weirdest thing for me is like, I'm glad she had this epiphany. It makes a lot of sense for her.
She needed it.
She needed it. She needed this emotional epiphany. However, the guy, like, that's not actually what happened to this man.
No.
Because what he was trying to put back together was a woman he had on a pedestal, and she was never that woman. This girl took her own life because she was so depressed. And this other man couldn't stand that she had done this to herself and that she lost all this potential. And that anyone that, that good or that pure or whatever you want to call it could actually take their own life. And the person he put back together was not a person. I'm assuming it was zombie-like because, she didn't even really have speech. She could barely focus her eyes. But I'm like, you were never putting back the woman you thought died. Anyway, it's fine. It's complicated, and I will never like this episode for this particular plot.
No, it's not. It's a really uncomfortable episode, and as Joy said to me as we were watching it, like, at least he's not doing it for sexual reasons that we can tell.
That was my only saving grace. I was like...
But at least it's just because it's like, but she was full of promise, and she was beautiful, and I want to restore her to this thing she loved, and it's like, watching it, I was just like, okay, I at least believe it's not a weird sex thing for this once. But I still hate it.
But then the scene where he was manipulating her body with the machine and making her dance and crying, I was, so creepy.
Yes. Also,
So
can we
creepy.
just take a minute and be like, good job, actress, for like doing the thing?
Yeah.
No, she's whoever the
Freaking
actress
awesome.
is, she's good at the body
Episode MVP.
Dang.
Yes.
acting.
But
Wow.
yeah, I always hate the A plot on this episode. But like, look, where we are right now is Olivia just needs to sit in her anger and she needs to understand it. And Peter needs to give her space. And he's like, he was prepared for that from the get-go. So like, it's weird to say, but I think they're actually in a relatively good place considering she said honestly what her emotions were, which is like,
That's exactly
it's
it.
a big deal for our girl.
It is a big deal. It sounds like such a low bar. But the fact that she was actually able to honestly and openly communicate her feelings, I'm just like, Olivia, yes.
Yeah. I was doing a little bit of digging because I remember the upset in fandom, but like I wasn't watching it back in the day when this came out. So like I found the old, like some old live journal posts and things, and like there was a big upset among people who were watching it because there was a bit of backlash against Peter. Like, look, we all sit here and we talk about Peter being like, how could you not have seen the red flags? What's wrong with you? Like, it obviously wasn't Olivia. Oh, did you get dumb because, your swear jar was getting wet? Watching this episode, like, it really, to me, puts it in perspective of, like, he was, that reminder of he was also lied to. He was assaulted. He now is questioning his own reality. But also, he is also in a place of, well, but I know she was tortured. Like, how can I in any way put my pain into any kind of perspective when I was having a great time, actually? And it's only once I realized what the reality was, did it turn to ash in my mouth? Right. How can I, at all try to even give a sliver of, well, actually, about my own experience?
Yeah.
When she was literally tortured and brainwashed.
And to his credit, he did not try to, actually.
Precisely.
There's always that, like, it's a new relationship and you get excited about the new things you find out about your partner.
Yeah.
And like you
and how
celebrate
how you grow and change together.
But not just that, but like the hobbies and the likes and dislikes, and like you get to know them. And the problem is he got to genuinely know a stranger, because it's not like Olivia was lying either. Like I don't think she was lying when she was like, "Oh yeah, crazy. God, I love this song."
No, I mean, but that's the thing. Like when it comes to when you're undercover, like there always has to be just enough truth to make the lie real.
No, 100%. And this is also where I think he's, as you said, questioning his own reality too, because at the very end of their interaction, she says something like, you know, this started out as just an assignment to me, but it became more. And, you know, Peter instantly is like, I don't believe you. But then when he's going through her stuff, she was going to take back the pictures that they took together.
Yes.
And it's like, why would she take that? Yeah. There's no reason for her to take that. Yeah, there was
some part of her that cared about him.
And that's the thing that messes me up, because all three of them didn't deserve any of this. Like, look, if we're going to place blame, honestly, PhauxLivia is at the top of my little pyramid. But, like, PhauxLivia also was thrust into a situation where she was like, well, this is literally my only job here. But I have a life on the other side.
And my job here is to save my entire world. It has been placed upon my sexy little shoulders, and I'm going to take my agenda and I'm going to utilize it. And thank you, Walter, for giving me that word. I'm going to use it forever now. Vagenda.
Yep. Vagenda. Oh, I loved that line from Walter. She tricked my son with her carnal manipulations, and he fell right into her vagenda. And then as he jumped, he bites into that giant pastry, and I too fell prey. She used my stomach to get through to my heart. Like, Walter.
I feel like I had to leave the room because I would have like flapped so hard at Nella during that part, and I like got up to get a glass of water or something because I felt like she needed to genuinely experience his whole tirade.
But then also, you know, Walter's doing the thing we all have been doing this whole time of like, well, obviously we must make PhauxLivia the ultimate villain.
Yeah.
Because she was the manipulator. And she's like, she was just as manipulated as anyone else. It's just she took it and caused more pain.
Yeah.
And that's why
she was a bit of a disaster.
If we're really getting down to it.
Yes, and she had more agency in the situation, I think.
She did.
Yeah. She was definitely an agent of her own chaos.
And now I know the show. Look, I'm going to put money on that. The show is going to make us have to sit through the unraveling of her own life for what she has done in the last 2 months. I'll put money on it.
As joy in my face is carefully do nothing.
I'm going to default to a smile from now on, because I realized I'm very bad at no face. So I think I can just smirk. And you don't know what it means.
Sure.
I mean, 60% of the time, I actually literally don't remember what's going to happen. So most of my blank expressions...
You're a mutant in that you're like, my own ignorance will protect me.
Like, actually don't know. Look, will they ever mention aliens again? I don't know, Nella. I don't know.
So, time for one more things?
Yes. What are the one more things? Now Vagenda can't be my one more thing.
I have it.
Okay.
So there's a picture on Walter Nitt's desk that I had to force us to pause and rewind.
I knew you were going to pause at that picture. I knew it.
For a moment, it looks like, okay, I know it's not Jimmy Carter, but it looks like Jimmy Carter. But let's do a rewind. And then it's an aged, like, John F. Kennedy. But the way the picture is framed, a part of me just had this horror moment of like, oh my God, are you telling me that if JFK didn't win the presidential election against Nixon, but Nixon was assassinated, and fine, let's just say like somehow, like someone else was VP, but like he never got another presidential chance, but then he became the Joe Biden of the alternate universe, just like working his way up through politics. Like, like just the career politician, and now he maybe now he's like VP, or maybe now he's finally president. Like after all this time, like JFK finally rolling up to the White House after Obama being like, I made it. Like, is this where we're going with this? Like, I went down this like spiral staircase of like, you can't do this to me, show. You can't make John F. Kennedy the Joe Biden of the alternate universe. I mean, you can, but you can't. You can't do this to me.
You can, but
anyway.
you can't.
That would be fascinating.
What is my one more thing? Okay, my one more thing is a difference between the two universes as well, although a tiny one, which is that in the AU, directly after Broyles' wife tries to serve him dinner from the fridge and he goes for the beer before he goes for the food, which I thought was a funny character moment. Directly after that scene, Link brings Olivia dinner. And what he brings her for dinner are some red vines.
Yeah.
Which
I
he
completely
claims,
missed that.
Yeah.
So he brings her red vines for dinner. She looks at the package. She's like, red vines? And then Link says, they're new. Charlie tried them. He says they're good.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, they're new. They're new.
New, you say.
New, you say. Where did this idea come from? And I wonder a little bit whether Walternate did steal it from the other universe, because how could precisely the exact same thing show up, but I don't know how many decades late?
Much later.
Or
like we've had like a Twizzler something or other for a very long time.
Yeah, but the thing is, it wasn't even like an AU name.
I know!
You know, it wasn't like Red Ropes. It wasn't, I don't know, what's another word for red? Auburn something.
You went with Auburn?
No. I went with Auburn? I know, it's a weird word to go
stalks. Well, like, a lot of times they're called straws and stuff.
Burgundy straws. But no, they were literally red vines.
No, I agree with you. It's weird.
Vermilion twigs?
Ooh, I like vermilion twigs.
Carmine hollows?
Stop thinking of names for this episode. Stop it. Stop it. We can only name this episode one thing, Nella. One. No,
That's when we do the A/B testing, and then we see what what episode name actually draws people's attention, and then that's the name we make the episode.
That's just it. Really quick on Red Vines, there's a quick joke about, like, after a while, the fans thought that the show was just being sustained by the Red Vine sponsor because they were in every episode. But my one more thing is really quick, and it's that I really like that the alternate universe actually gave what's-his-name his legs back and then didn't kill him.
Oh, yes.
Yes, they didn't kill him.
I was so waiting for him to just die.
I thought he was going to die. I was expecting it.
They didn't do it because he did his job. He just did it.
I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Well, they're never going to know.
Remember how I said I don't remember this show?
I mean, they would never know that they found the typewriter or anything because the guy was just like, I know this was the last thing and she left it in my shop. Like he never has to tell them that. Like he could get away scot-free with that one. And like he did his job. And then that's it. It is a very majestic beast, Nella. I know.
He got his reward. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. With that, listeners, we would love to hear from you. Please check us out at Binge O'Clock Pod on Twitter and Facebook, where you can answer the question, what should someone ask your doppelganger to prove that they are not you? You can also email us at bingeoclockpod@gmail.com. And don't forget, we have a Patreon. Find us at patreon.com/PhauxPod.
That's right. And tell your friends, tell your family, tell your loved ones, tell the live lobsters in your life about Binge O'Clock, and we will see you next time.
Well,
please,
with that,
listeners, we need to end this episode before my cat eats my face.
Yes, but first
she's
you have
getting
to think
very
about
aggressive.